Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So today we have just got access to the full Season 3 patch notes, all the details of everything that's going to be changing, all the new content that's going to be added, and kind of all the buffs and nerfs that are going to be affecting us through the Season 3 release on the 21st of April. So just before we actually dig into this, because there's an awful lot to get through, because there's quite a lot that's changing, I just wanted to preface this by saying, so those of you in the know will know that, so there's the Conqueror's Blade Frontier version, which is basically the Chinese and Asian version of the game, and they got the patch a week or two before us, so we've been able to get a bit of an idea of what is upcoming from the patch on their server. But it's been true other times, and it's also certainly true this time, that we don't get all the changes that they get on their server, don't always get carried over to our server. And that's certainly true this time, where there's been a number of things that haven't changed. Examples of this will include things like, for example, on the Asian server, they have introduced basically a star unit ban. So heroic and golden era, so 4 and 5 star units have basically been banned for a couple of weeks. This is kind of to allow newer players, but it's going to affect, a lot of the more veteran players in the game, and that is not copying across to us. We're not going to have that. We're also not going to have the region locks and things that they've been introducing and banning players from certain regions. So there's kind of a lot of changes that aren't being carried across. With that being said, obviously the first thing we've got to cover on the new patch notes is all the new Season 3 stuff, the Season 3 Battle Pass, and all the new units that are coming with it. So, of course, we've got, obviously, the new units, the Conqueror Guards, I'm not going to be able to pronounce them, the Brachio Pikemen, again, probably pronounced terribly. We've got the Gunners, these are the basically the cannon infantry, which is really kind of going to be interesting, if a little potentially scary, in terms of how that's going to play out. And, of course, we've got the Pavese Crossbows, those crossbows units with enormous swords, or even shields. And they're going to be one of the few Tier 5 ranged units. Really, they're the ones that I'm most excited about. And, of course, we've got the Tier 1 little mercenary unit, which are hopefully going to have a really low leadership cost, but still give that 10% bonus. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how all that plays out. Obviously, they aren't going to be unlocked by honour, with the exception of the Pavese Crossbows, who are going to be put into the unit tech tree as normal, as well as being unlockable using the unit missions. So it'll be the same as Season 2 in the sense of the unit missions. If you didn't really get involved in Season 2, then that's basically, there'll be a series of missions and challenges which you have to complete. And then that'll unlock certain stages, and then as you complete all the stages, it'll be like 3 stages for the first unit, 6 stages for the next unit, and maybe 9 stages for something like the ending Tier 5 Cannoneers. And you have to unlock all of these to be then able to unlock that unit. As I say, with the exception of the Pavese Crossbows, because they're also going to be able to be unlockable for honour in the tech tree. We have also got things like the new Maul class coming in. That is going to be unlockable via the Battle Pass. I think once you get to level 25, that's supposed to be accessible. So that's going to be something else that they're going to be introducing. I have a few concerns about the Maul class, particularly its carry ability. I don't know if some of you have seen some of the clips on Reddit and stuff. It certainly carries quite a long way, so I have some concerns about how that's going to play out, but I actually kind of need to see that in combat and be able to try it for myself to be able to kind of comment too much. So yeah, certainly going to be an interesting class. It certainly looks pretty badass, but hopefully they don't make it too powerful so it's a bit ridiculous and sort of throws off the hero balance. So, moving away from kind of all the new stuff, and of course this is all going to be included in the Battle Pass. As far as I'm aware, the Battle Pass, like Season 1 and Season 2, is going to be 1,000 sovereigns for the base Battle Pass, and then it'll be something close to 2,000 sovereigns. It's normally, I think last time it was 1,980. It'll be something like that for the Battle Pass with plus 1,000 glory. So that'll take you to level 25 or level 30 or something like that. So both of those should be the same price as normal. So it should work out about €10, £10, etc., whatever your local currency may be. Different things. So on our server, we have always rejected the epic and legendary doctrines. Something I've always thought was a really good decision. On the Frontier server, they have these epic and legendary doctrines, and they're just ridiculously powerful. Things like plus 100 defense on all stats. It makes units super tanky, and I'm glad we don't have these, because it's just something that's just going to make the experienced players even more ridiculously strong and make it harder and harder for newer players to ever get into the game and ever compete. So I'm glad we don't have them. But they are introducing these seasonal doctrines, and these are going to introduce rare and legendary doctrines for specific periods of time. It seems like they are going to be from 1 to 12 days in length, and We don't know exactly what they're going to be buffing. It doesn't specifically specify, but I'm assuming it's going to be similar to sort of the epic and legendary doctrines we've seen on Frontier, so they're going to be sort of more powerful buffs than you're getting from your normal blue doctrines, because these are going to be purple and kind of the golden ones. It seems as well in the seasonal store you're going to be able to buy 1 day and 3 day doctrines. So then after the 3 days they are going to just basically expire. Although supposedly if you get 2 of the same one, so you say if you've got 3 days you could put it on a unit and then you can stack the other one on top to make it say like a 6-day seasonal doctrine. So it can be adjusted in that sense. Yeah, not a terrible idea. I like the fact that they're time limited, so if it turns out that they are really overpowered, then at least it's just a seasonal specific or seasonal limited doctrine. They have said they will definitely end with the end of season 3, so yeah, so I don't have too much concerns about that, because I say if it is a terrible idea, at least it's time limited and it's not something we're going to be stuck with permanently. So to move away from the direct season 3 stuff a little bit, let's move on to some of the territory war changes. Firstly, I just wanted to mention that it's going to be drill mode for quite a long time. So when the season launches on the 21st of April, it's going to then be drill mode to the 4th of May. And after that, I think we're planning it's going to go on to the Barons War, Conquer Thief in your region, crossing frontiers, they'll open up the borderlands, etc. It's going to play out very similarly, I believe, to the way Season 2 does. It sounds like there's going to be a similar Conqueror's City type event for you to try and capture in the middle of the map, in the middle of the borderlands as well. So I think it's largely going to play out very similarly. Just bear in mind, 4th of May is going to be when the Territory Wars actually plans to open up, so a couple of weeks of drill mode. Moving away from kind of the actual start dates is going to be a lot of the changes to the legions and the Imperial Restoration system. So if you don't want to join a free house, you have the option to join basically like the AI's house, these Imperial houses. And they're kind of good. They basically allow newer players, if they don't want to join a house directly, to still get involved in territory wars through a lot of these Imperial systems and Imperial legions. And there's different ones for each region. There's one for Astaria, one for Untivaria, one for Liangyong, and one for Mariang. And they basically can attack other towns around the area. But unlike the free houses, which have a title system where the owner of the house gets the option to award, Marshal and Baron and Castilian to the various members of the house, and they get bronze rewards and treaties rewards and cannon rewards for part of that. There hasn't been something like that for the Imperial system. So they are now introducing that, and they're called Marshal title ranks. And there's going to be 2 sets. There's going to be sort of a Western set for Astaria and which one's it going to be? Untivaria, if I can remember my regions correctly. And they're going to be things like Centurion, Opio, First Legate, Deputy Legate, obviously fairly Romanesque type titles. And then was Liangyong and Mariang, we're going to have like Captain of the Guard, Sub-Lieutenant, Patrol Leader, Ranger, General of the East, and some sort of slightly more Eastern style titles. So to then actually unlock these titles, you're going to be needing to earn acclaim points, and you're basically going to get this from participating in territory wars and achieving combat objectives which are set by the Legion of your region. I think these objectives are probably going to be set automatically, and I don't know exactly, it doesn't specify what these are going to be, but I'm assuming it's going to be, participate in the capture of this town, conquer this city, declare war on these, engage 5 people in field battles. And the more of these points you get, combined with the amount of influence your legion gets in terms of how much land it actually owns on the territory war map, determine what your martial title will be. And I think if there's only a limited number of titles, so if there's a competition between 2 people who have got the same number of points, it basically gives it to the person who has the most acclaim points, i.e. the person who's contributed the most to the legion. We've also got some changes in the way the war declaration works. Now, I'm trying to get my head around this from the patch notes, but they've basically added a functionality where ruling houses can set battle participations and battle participants on the declare war screen. So I think this hopefully is going to mean that houses who have been having issues where they plan to invade a fief, turn up with 15 men but only get 7 in, and then lots of random houses get 1 or 2 people in, and it basically means they can't capture the fief because their normally coordinated 15-man attack squad can't work together because only 7 of them can get in the fief. And it seems like they're hopefully going to be able to set participants for each line and set it to be able to attack, just to them if they want to, or them or their allies if they want to. And so hopefully that will make things a little bit easier, and it's going to be based on the ruling house of the attack. So it also gives a little bit more purpose now to actually declaring war, particularly early on, to try and get that ruling house title. We've also got some changes to the level required to declare war on villages, forts and towns. So previously it was like level 1 for village, 2 for town, 3 for fort, I think. But now they're changing it so the nearer you are to the capital, the higher house level you will require to be able to declare war, and the further away the town, village or fort is, then the lower the level requirements will be. So kind of interesting to see how that actually scales. You know, hopefully they don't make it crazy high house level requirements to get up to be able to attack villages and forts and stuff near the capital. Otherwise it's going to make a real dash to try and level the house up before territory war actually kicks off. We've also got some very minor changes in terms of NPC Defenders. So currently you get very low level defenders in battles. If you are defending a fief, you'll notice you get a few NPCs with you. They're not really a lot of use, they're pretty low level. They're actually putting them up higher so that as you level your fief you end up with sort of tier 4 and tier 5 NPCs defending. You know, maybe slightly more useful. They're still really going to be cannon fodder, aren't they? I don't think it's going to make a tremendous amount of difference. We're also getting quite a few changes to the way food works and the resource system in general. So, food. Food is now free. When you enter a friendly town, it will replenish automatically. When you're moving around capital cities and lands controlled by their allies, your food will not consume or replenish slowly. And in friendly regions, so controlled by friendly houses and allies, it will only consume at 50%. They've also made it so that when you're in enemy territory, once you've used your 15,000 food out your food bar, it will then automatically draw from your wagon rather than having to manually load it from your wagon to your food bar. So it's just going to get a little bit more user friendly. They're basically making it to not completely remove food from the game, but they're certainly removing it as a major factor. It was a little annoying, you know, particularly when food runs out after sort of 7 or 8 minutes, particularly when you're carrying, you know, a full stack of 5 units with you. It's kind of one of those limitations in territory wars that makes things a bit different. So they're basically relaxing some of the restrictions on that and making it less of an influencing factor. And it's certainly nice that they've made it free, particularly for newer players. You know, for me it's not really such an issue, but when you're a newer player spending sort of 750 gold just to restock your food, 750 gold or maybe even bronze, it's quite a lot of bronze to spend just sort of off the cuff, you know, just so you can continue to move around the open world map. So I'm glad they've changed that. So then the resource system, they've made some changes that I'm not sure I fully agree with, but some things, you know, are kind of better. Firstly, they basically removed a lot of the benefit of requisition orders. So it got to the point where requisition orders could be used to extract from depleted resources at a 50% extraction rate. So for example, if say a purple stone mine for granite popped up in our allied territory, more than likely a lot of people for the house would go and grab that because everyone wants purple granite. But that gets depleted very quickly because everyone can extract, you know, 100,000 in one go or something with their daily gathers. And considering it only has 1 million or so to start with, 10 people do it and it's depleted. But the requisition tokens allowed you to then still go on and gather these resources. Even if instead of gathering 100,000, I'd only gather 50,000 and I'd be required to use requisition tokens. They are basically stopping that from being able to be used anymore. So instead, requisition tokens now boost the amount of resources that can be gathered while there's still materials in a resource site, which is fine, I suppose, but it just means they're going to deplete quicker. Presumably they can still be used in enemy territory to allow gathering sort of above and beyond a locked resource site. And we're now going to be able to use common and uncommon resources to process epic materials. They're just going to require a lot more of them to actually do it. But at least they're kind of opening that up a little bit more, so hopefully making the crafting system a little bit more functional. Next, goods delivery. So previously, if, like me, you're based kind of out on the edge of the map, when there's not really much of a market in terms of resources and stuff like that, you know, I have to travel to the main capital city to be able to go and gather that wherever you are. You know, you might have to travel to Anliang, something like that, to go and buy your resources if you wanted to buy anything. But now they've introduced a goods delivery system, which is basically going to allow you to search the market in a much wider field, buy things, and then pay someone to carry it to you. And that will be an AI and not another player. And yeah, nice system. Glad they've introduced that. It's going to make the market feel a lot more open to those kind of a bit further away. It probably may work a little bit to depopulate some of the more central areas, because one of the main reasons to be there, i.e. access to the market, is no longer going to be sort of a main driving factor. But all in all, probably a good thing. So let's try and keep this video under 20 minutes. So, nerfs and balances that are coming into the game. Obviously, cavalry is the main one here that's changing. So generally speaking, it feels like the developers are saying that Tier 5 Cavalry, particularly Cavalry in general, is a little bit overpowered, or they feel it's too strong in certain situations, and they want to make some changes to that. I largely agree. I think it's a bit of a fine balancing point, but yes, I think Cavalry has become kind of the dominant factor in siege battles at the moment, and it certainly feels very harsh on newer players who, you know, don't really have all that much they can do and don't really understand why they're just being flattened repeatedly by Tier 5 Cav. So they're making changes. If you charge into walls, big objects, at high speed, you're going to start taking damage. So if you charge your cavalry, so for example, down the stairs and into a wall, you're going to take damage. They are also making it so that when cavalry gets interrupted, be it braced weapons, be it a musket shot, a bolt, a hero slamming them, they will not re-enter their charge status again. So that is basically their charge over once they get interrupted. That's quite a big change. It's going to make quite a big difference. And they've also reduced kind of the initial speed and acceleration of units. So they're going to require a longer time to get to their maximum speed. And they go on to list a couple of units where they've specifically focused this on. I think the idea is that you're not going to be able to, you know, race around a corner, do an immediate 90-degree turn and just charge clean down a street. I think they're trying to make it so, you know, you have to sort of line yourself up, get your momentum going. So hopefully things are going to play perhaps a little more like the Monastic Knights, rather than like Winged Hussars or Prefecture Cavalry Cav, or, you know, some of the Cataphract Lancers and things with United Charge. So this is going to be quite a lot of changes to cavalry. Generally, I think it's a good thing. I do hope they haven't overdone it. I think there's going to be a very fine tipping point on this one where it's suddenly going to go to the point that Cav becomes useless because it's going to be too easily stunned, or it's going to be very hard to get any sort of reliable charge kills. And I think once you get to that point, that's a bad thing because cavalry is just going to disappear completely. One nice thing they have done though, and they do say due to ability changes, will be issuing compensation. The item resets for the cavalry units, so you can rebuild your cavalry units. I assume that is going to be on a reset tokens, hopefully. And an item will be distributed to remove Doctrines from your cavalry. Again, nice, so that if you feel that the changes are made it so you no longer want to use your Winged Hussars or Cataphract Lancers or whatever it may be, then you can use them, get the Doctrines back off them to use on other units. We're also seeing a little bit of bug fixing and adjustments around unit formations. Basically, the problem was that when a couple of units died, the unit formation had to try and adjust to fix that, but that sometimes meant that the unit became a lot smaller. For example, in the case of Winged Hussars, I think when a couple died, the wedge shrunk down a lot, and they basically went from a dispersed formation to a tight formation. And that's just one example where they're trying to fix that to make it maintain a consistent spacing and formation throughout the death of units. And there's a couple of other examples, Prefecture Guards and Uncapped Spearmen, where it kind of went a bit wrong. Basically, they've been bug fixing that. They're also altering the control logic when, as a warlord, you die in battle. So currently when you die, you sort of have some ability to control your units, but you're kind of stuck on a quite slightly clunky camera, and it can be a bit of a pain. So they're basically changing it slightly. They say when your warlord dies, your units will either attack freely, so you can just sort of set them to attack mode as you can now, or follow the warlord you are spectating. Well, that certainly sounds interesting. If that plans out as nicely as it sounds, that's certainly a nice thing. Maybe if you're with some friends or something, then you can certainly perhaps get your unit to follow them rather than just sort of milling around on their own. If that sort of works nicely, that's certainly a nice sounding feature. We've also got changes in the sense that units in retreat status will no longer be able to take orders. I think basically that means once a unit runs away, it's running away rather than being able to sort of fight to the last stand after you've died like you can now. So a couple of changes there. We are also seeing some nerfs and changes around some of the armour sets. So it's going to be a real big one for any Carnifex users. They're basically getting rid of the 100 leadership bonus from a Carnifex set and instead adding a plus 10 to strength, agility, arm and toughness. Well, I don't know, I'm surprised they've done that, to be honest. That's kind of one of the main benefits of being a medium armour class. You know, you don't stand up so well in combat, you are a lot weaker. But the plus 100 leadership gave you a much nicer access to units. To take that away completely and to only give, well, plus 10 strength, agility, arm and toughness, it's not exactly a great boost. You know, that's like, for example, plus 60 damage to your, you know, spear slashing damage, you know, and plus 30 slashing, blunt and piercing defense in terms of the armor. So yeah, all in all, probably a little bit of a disappointing change for Carnifex users. Not sure it was necessarily necessary. Also a couple of changes to the Desert Court set and the Fearless Paladin set, but so few people even have these, it's almost completely irrelevant. And finally, there's some very small cooldown changes on hero abilities with multiple steps. I.e., for example, for me with Poleaxe, I have the Bet to Corbin, where I swing once left, swing once right, swing once left. If I get knocked down during my first swing, my cooldown is shorter than if I make this just a stage 3. So basically, if you get interrupted halfway through, you start your cooldown rather than having to wait such a long time for it to be back ready again. And that's true across multiple weapons and glaives and other equipment, etc. So hopefully this has kind of been a useful little update. I didn't quite manage to keep it under 20 minutes. Hopefully you're not too bored. If you've made it this far in the video, well done. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it useful. If you have any questions about the upcoming Season 3 patch, do let me know in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because we'll be certainly touching on a lot of the Season 3 content as it all comes out. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.